Here guys, the Nomadic. This is the boat that actually brings the first class passenger.
Nomadic before their visit today? No? A wee bit, that's okay, no worries. What I'll do, I'll give you a brief overview to the history of the ship and then I'll let you have a look around by yourselves. So this ship, she is very special. It is the only White Star Line ship left in the world today, and it was actually built here in Belfast back in 1911, just on the slipway. So if you haven't had a chance to take a walk down them, they are quite nice to take a walk along. Maybe not today with it being so blowy, but usually it is lovely. Only took 5 months to build this ship from start to finish, so it was very quick construction. And the ship was actually built with a very specific purpose, and that was to be the little tender based in Cherbourg in France. And there she had the role of picking the passengers up from the quayside and ferrying them out to the large liners. The likes of the Olympic and the Titanic back in 1911, 1912 were some of the largest ships in the world, and they couldn't actually fit into some of the harbours. So Nomadic in Cherbourg was the way of then sort of ferrying the passengers out. Now, really the point of this ship was to wow the passengers from the minute they left shore. Back in 1911, a lot of people didn't have, electric in their homes, but Nomadic was one of the first tenders to have electric lighting on board. It had flushing toilets, and first class also had full complimentary access to the bar as well. Not today, unfortunately. Now, as you go around, you will see there is a divide on board, and you will notice that as you go through. Rather than being split by upper and lower floors, it's actually split down the middle. So the front half of the ship is for first class passengers, where you are now, and then the back half of the ship was used for second class passengers. Third class were kept separate. They had their own ship called the SS Traffic, and they were then transported out along with the luggage and the mail bags. They were really kept out of sight. But this little ship, she did tender out about 174 passengers to Titanic from Cherbourg, but that's not where her story stopped. She kept on going, and she had many different roles throughout her career. She ended up being used in both World Wars. In the First World War, she was actually requisitioned by the French government and used as a minesweeper. Now, just to give you an idea, the average life expectancy for a minesweeper in World War I was about 3 days. So Nomadic was very lucky to have survived. She went on to then escape from the port of Cherbourg in the Second World War, managed to make it across the Channel to Portsmouth, and was then used by the British Navy as a troop carrier for the remainder of the Second World War. When the Second World War actually finished, she then returned to Cherbourg. The harbour there had been completely destroyed, and she continued her work as a tender right up until the late 60s. So for a ship that was only meant to last about 20 years, Nomadic ended up tendering for about 57, which was really quite impressive. Now, finally she was put out of service. Air travel was becoming much more popular, and at that point her future was really quite uncertain. Thankfully though, there was a French businessman who came along. He had seen Nomadic in the harbour, and he decided to purchase the ship and take her to Paris. And he actually took her right to the heart of Paris, moored her on the River Seine, more or less right in front of the Eiffel Tower. And she sat there for almost 30 years during the 70s, 80s and 90s. Does anyone want to have a guess what she was? A restaurant, that's it. So this upper deck that you're on was actually a series of restaurants. The lower deck was fitted out as a nightclub, and the engine room space, he did unfortunately remove the engines, and he used that space for all sorts of entertainment, and it ended up being a cinema of all things. So it was a very different style for the ship during that time. Now, one of the very lucky things is that the gentleman actually stripped out a lot of the interior features and put them into storage. So whenever the ship came back here in 2006, the team who were in charge of the restoration were able to bring a lot of those features back and then reuse them. The restoration actually took about 4 years in total. The ship had not come back looking like this, as you can imagine. There was a lot of work needed. But they were able to sort of refit and restore a lot of the panels, a lot of the light fixtures, even the doors that you've come through. Things like the bar and the staircase, a lot of bench seating downstairs, they're all still 107 years old, so we're very lucky.
Peri-peri chicken na naman ulit kami kasi gusto ni Bea bumalik dito.
Nag-ano ba ba?
Ha?
Nag-order ka ng liver?
Yes. Gusto ni Bea bumalik dito.
Ano, plain lang?
Ganun daw talaga. May spice daw talaga. Hindi daw talaga pwedeng plain. So kahapon nandito kami guys. Okay. Hinagay ako na yung sauce sa inyo. Pero ito daw yung
The lemon should be good.
wild and herb, lemon, and
Or if you mix the lemon and the garlic together.
so, mamaya na yung video tsaka picture. Food again. Peri-peri chicken.
This is delicious! I can't wait!
Alright. Atay ng manok, guys. Tingnan ko nga kung maanghang pa rin to.
I knew they were gonna make the chicken a little spicy.
Sabi ko plain eh.
No.